All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide, toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. And our main website where you can listen to the X Zone 724, 365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Before I get to my next guest, Peter KLING, there's a message that I would like to personally deliver to the Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister Harper, and it goes as follows. Music, please, Craig. Hey, Prime Minister Harper, before you let any more refugees or immigrants into Canada, here's an unusual idea. Why not make sure that all Canadians are taken care of first? Take care of our homeless, take care of our hungry, take care of our poor, take care of our sick, and take care of our senior citizens. Bring back the jobs that have been outsourced and have taken away jobs from Canadians. It's time that Canadians take back Canada and abolish the over-politically correct attitude that we have been forced into becoming. Now, no one asked me if I wanted to be politically correct, and I'm certain that no other Canadian was asked either. It's time when Canadians say, enough is enough. The international free ride is over. No more immigration or refugees into Canada until all Canadians are taken care of first. It is Canadians who should vote on immigration policies and should not be left up to the politicians who only have one goal, and that's to win votes by whatever means possible, including allowing immigrants and refugees into Canada. For those who have been fortunate enough to get into our great country, if you do not like our traditions, if you don't like our way of living, if you don't like our great history and our rich culture, if you don't agree with having the Bible in our schools, saying Merry Christmas, celebrating Easter, nativity scenes at Christmas, Christmas trees, or any of our long-time standing Canadian traditions, here's a little bit of advice for you. Where your plane landed, it will bring you back from wherever you came. For the X Zone Radio TV show and the X Chronicles newspaper, I am Rob McConnell, and I am a proud Canadian. Welcome back, everyone. Peter KLING is my special guest this hour. Hey, Peter, welcome back to the X Zone.
My pleasure, Rob. Wow, what powerful words.
You know, Peter, I am just so pissed off. I've had it up to here with politicians selling us out. And you know, I did a documentary a couple of, 2 years ago on the homeless and on the hungry. And it broke my heart. And politicians don't seem to care about who they step on to get where they want to go. And it's about time we took back our countries and said, hey, enough is enough. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. Enduring all the things that this world is throwing at us. But, you know, when you speak the truth, you come under attack. That's just the way it is.
Hey, speaking about coming under attack, before we get in talking about the Pope, Ben Carson, Donald Trump, they're getting lambasted for their freedom of speech. And you know, I've heard so many people on the talk shows today talking about the Constitution and how It really doesn't matter who you are. Anybody can become president of the United States, no matter what religions or what their beliefs are. But they point to the Constitution, and you're an American, Peter, and I love my American neighbors. God bless them. I love them all. However, like Canadian laws, I think that if your founding fathers would have known about 9/11, ISIS, and a lot of the other things that are happening in the world today, I think they would have been a little bit more clear when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and your Constitution.
Well, that, and if a lot of presidents didn't sell us down the road, yes.
Well, our politicians are selling us down the road all the time, so we're in the same pickle as you guys are.
Yeah, and there's a common link here, and it's an interesting link. When we look at politics here in America, every president since Ronald Reagan has been a Knight of Malta, with the exception of Barack Hussein Obama, who has a letter of endorsement from the Knights of Malta. Now, just to be clear, the Knights of Malta are subjects of the Pope and citizens of the Vatican. It's just like as in medieval times, if I was the king and I made you one of my knights, I would give you land grants and holdings, and you would be in servitude of me, and essentially you would own a section of my kingdom, and your people would be paying taxes to you, and you in turn would be paying taxes to me.
So I got to buy the short and curlies.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah.
And considering that the Holy See is the mother of all corporations, including all religious corporations, of which there are numerous ones around the world. Yeah. If you are a recognized religion by the government and have filed for your religiously exempt form, you are a corporation and therefore under the guise of the Vatican.
I believe, Peter, that the Vatican should be disbanded.
It's going to be.
You
see, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I think that all the property, all the gold, all the land, all its holdings should be sold off and given to the poor.
Have you read Revelation 17 and 18? Because it's interesting when you read those prophecies. That's exactly what's going to happen. You see, there's actually a history which ties all of this together, and it takes us back to the Anunnaki. Now I want to address one thing. You brought up about the American politicians being lambasted. Yeah. I get a kick out of Donald Trump. He's like a sideshow. You see, he's politically incorrect.
That's right.
And the people of the United States and Canada are tired of being politically correct.
That's right.
There's only one level that we need to be politically correct on, and that is at the level of exopolitics. You see, now exopolitics is really what's governing the cosmos. And we are about to see exopolitics come to Earth. As in the words, my kingdom is no part of this earth yet. Or actually world. Yeah. You see, this world is under control of, by the best record, the Anunnaki. And the reason why we can say this is because all religion and government can be traced back right to the cradle of civilization, which was the kingdom of Nimrod. And that is where religion and government start, and it's handed to us by a off-planet species from whom heaven came. The first gods, the Anunnaki. And Zachariah Stitchin was so nice to translate most of this for us, he said.
Yeah, I miss him. He was a great guy.
And everybody gets hung up in Nibiru. Well, wait a minute. where did religion and government come from? And now you see, here's an interesting thing, and this information can't be found within the scriptures, not directly. However, when we look at the historical information on on Nimrod's kingdom, he became the sun god king, the first one, the first Ra. And his wife, Syriamis, who was an Erechite prostitute who he found at an inn on his way home from one of his conquests, literally screwed herself into the primary position of his kingdom by having him assassinated. There's two different stories, but the more realistic one goes that he was actually torn apart and eaten raw at a drunken orgy celebrating the new year. Now, sometime after this, and she gains the complete control over the complete kingdom of the Sumerians, and she makes herself, or the Anunnaki make her, the goddess of the earth, the moon, and the stars. Now, when she becomes pregnant, she claims it's Nimrod incarnate, or the child that she's pregnant with is Nimrod incarnate, and he has come back to be with his people. And so she gives birth to the star child Tammuz. Yeah. Now, interesting. This story is repeated throughout virtually every culture, every world power, from Egypt right on up to today. But today we see the seed, the serpent seed as it's called in Genesis 3:15. We see that seed in the three symbols of the three main religions, the star of Molech, or the star of Nimrod, which is a sun symbol. It's commonly called the Star of David. He'd be spinning in his grave because he killed people who displayed that star, and he did so in a righteous war sanctioned by Yahuwah or Yahweh against Molech worshippers, child-sacrificing Molech worshippers. The second symbol for Syriamis is a symbol of life. It became more famous in the Ankh cross, which was the symbol that Isis, isn't that a familiar name? Isis used as a rebirth, but it became more famous, used by the Catholic Church who worship Mary. Now, interestingly enough, Isis, a goddess, gave birth to the star child, a reincarnate of God. She indeed became the first Madonna. And every culture after that had its own Madonna. So when Mary, the Virgin Hebrew mother of Jesus, or Yeshua, became impregnated, and an interdimensional approached her by the name of Gabriel and said, hey, you're carrying the genetically perfect child of God. Mary was impregnated by exopolitical means in order to bring about a perfect human with perfect human DNA, not to be seen since the time of Adam and his cloned wife Eve, until then. And that perfect human blood was spilled out upon this earth as a blood sacrifice, and not just a claim to earth, but a claim to the future of the human race. You see, there's the Catholic Church and many secret organizations hold blood sacrifices several times throughout the year, most of the time involving children. And this is where Lush comes from. It actually became famous in the Vril Society after the First World War, when there was a lot of orphan children around that weren't going to be missed. Ask yourself, where does 500,000 children evaporate to every year? Right off of planet Earth. Maybe the Vril Society and those who capture Lush and sell it to interdimensional alien beings as the most powerful drug in the universe may be able to tell us. And those are the ones who are controlling this planet, of this system of evil, of which the Pope is the prime director of, in sitting in the seat of the Holy See, the mother of all corporations, the mother of all religions, the mother of Babylon the Great, where all religions originated from, the Madonna, the child, the mother of God, is now showing up in the United States and going to the White House to confer with the Obama.
Yeah.
And then the thing which causes desolation will be in the Capitol building of a country which has prided itself since its inception of separating church and state by Freemason factions of our founding fathers. And he is going to be dictating to Congress what to do. And from there, he goes to the United Nations to bless the New World Order under the guise of the post-2015 development agenda. And then on the 26th, he goes to Philadelphia, stands in front of Independence Hall, speaking at the same lectern that Abraham Lincoln spoke at to address the Catholic families of the world.
Is this a slap in the face to freedom in America?
When Syriamis had Nimrod killed, and she took control of his kingdom, she may have said something like what is recorded at Revelation 18. I believe it's verse 7 and 8. I sit as a queen, no widow am I, no mourning shall I see. And it goes on to say that is why in one day our judgment will come. Now here's an interesting correlation. It is a common metaphor of a day for a year in biblical prophetic timing. So the Pope has, let me digress.
Okay.
We are now currently under a Zionistic Jubilee year, which started just last week. I say Zionistic because it has nothing to do with the Hebrews. The Hebrew Jubilee has not been kept since before, about 200 and some odd years before Nebuchadnezzar razed Jerusalem the first time. And that was back around 600 years BC. They haven't kept it since then. That's by their own records. It's certainly not being kept by their records now. This is the year 5776. Now, based on where they want to start keeping their records from, it doesn't match up. There's no place where you see any Orthodox Jews celebrating the Jubilee year. I've never heard of the Jubilee year being celebrated before, nor the Shemitah years. The Shemitah year is a 7-year cycle, and both of these were instituted under Mosaic law. The Shemitah year, a 7-year cycle, was a cycle that was supposed to be to let the land rest. No work was supposed to be done on the 7th year. Isn't that great? You get a whole year off. Yeah, just feed your animals. You know, you have plenty for the last that you grew over the last 6 years. Your storehouses are full. You're keeping the Mosaic law. You're being blessed by an interdimensional, extraterrestrial, whatever you want to call it. You're being blessed by the very soul of the multiverse itself. Yahuwah, the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, Jehovah, however you want to call it, it means the same thing. He who causes to become. So that was their law system. Now, at the end of that 7-year, or when that 7th year came, depending on the contract, most slaves were released from their indentured servants. And slavery back then was more like being employed today for an employer. It's like, going to your job from 9 to 5. However, there were other arrangements that were made. You could actually sell your land, and it wasn't really a sale, it was a rental. You can sell yourself into slavery. And there again, it was an employment type situation where you promised to work for this individual up until the Jubilee year. Now you have 7 times 7, which is the 49th year, and that would be a Shemitah year, which was essentially up until 2014 to 2015, and it ended in September. Now we're in the Jubilee year. So under Mosaic law, all debt is forgiven, all land returns back to its original owners. If all slavery ends, everything goes back to a 0 year. Now, I don't see anybody declaring world peace here.
No, I don't.
Okay. Now, not to be outdone. Now, this is why I say it's a Zionist year. Now, the person who has brought this to light is a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Cahn. Now, a man of light who talks about the Shemitah and the Jubilee year, and he never wears anything but black.
Mm-hmm. Isn't he a rabbi?
Yes.
Yeah.
A Zionist rabbi, no doubt. Because he's promoting the Zionist establishment of their Jubilee year, which goes back to the capturing of the city of Jerusalem. It's existing based on an interesting cycle which takes us back to 1814. It takes us back 200 years when the Rothschilds were trying to form a one-world government at the Congress of Vienna when the Napoleonic Wars were coming to an end. Oh, there was a world war in Europe. What a surprise. Let's see, go back 100 years ago. Well, let's see, 1915 would have been, 1915 to 1916 would have been the Jubilee year, right? So at the end of the Jubilee year, what happened? Well, 1917, some very interesting things happened in 1917. The English captured the Holy Land, the Promised Land. They took it from the Ottoman Empire. The Bolshevik Revolution, financed by the Rothschilds and Oppenheimers, overthrew a two-front war that Russia was fighting, and the Tsar and his family were exterminated, and communism was established in Russia, and the United States got sucked into the First World War. Not only that, but under Rothschild coercement, Lord Balfour came out with the Balfour Agreement, which turned into the Balfour Declaration, signed off by the King of England, declaring Palestine the future homeland of the Jews. Now, it's interesting to note here that at the First Congress of Zion in 1897, it was originally supposed to be held in Munich, Germany. However, when the local population found out that the purpose for the First Congress of Zion was to relocate Jews back to Palestine, which was still under Ottoman control at the time, they went into an uproar. These are German Jews. They live in Bavaria. Why do they want to go to the Middle East? What, are you crazy? We live in the Catskills. We want to go to Arizona? Come on. What, are you kidding? So what happens at the Second World War? All that don't leave get exterminated. There's actually a medal commemorating the Nazi Zionist involvement or cooperation in making Germany. It came out in 1933, if I read, in 33. I forget when it was actually minted. You can look it up online. But it commemorates the Nazi Zionist Mach Deutschland free, Juden free, make Germany Jewish free, is what's marked on that coin. And the symbol of the swastika is on one side, and the symbol of Molech is on the other. And ask why it's a Holocaust. Do you know what Holocaust means, Rob?
I only know what it pertains to, the annihilation of the Jewish race.
Yeah. Yeah, but what the word actually means is whole burnt offering to God. It is a sacrifice. Which God did they have a whole burnt offering to? Which God is it that they are worshiping? That they needed to annihilate over 6 million Hebrews, according to the records. When we look at communism, by the time the end of Joseph Stalin's reign was over, a third of the population of Russia was dead, starting with the Christian part. When we look at the overthrow of communism in China, a third of the population died. When we look at the killing fields in the Pol Pot regime of Cambodia, a third of the population died. When we look at the prophecy of Revelation 9, they release a plague upon this earth, possibly by opening up a portal using CERN, where a third of the population dies. I'm just reporting the news.
How do you know your news is correct?
Prophecy.
How do you vet this news?
Because it's a repeating cycle, all by the same people, Rob. It's all by the same people. The people that brought us who financed the Napoleonic Wars, and that's clearly documented as being the Rothschilds. They financed both sides. Then they got news that Napoleon was defeated by what's his name at Waterloo. Theirs was the only ships that were able to go back and forth between France and England. They were not blockaded. The news of who won got to the floor of the London Stock Exchange first, and by the time it was over, what we saw in what was that movie, Trading Places, about the New York Stock Exchange with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what they did, except that they did it with war bonds, and they captured the Bank of England. And Meyer Amschel Rothschild said, "I care not who sits on the throne as long as I run the bank of the country. I shall dictate its future." And the same conglomerate owns the Federal Reserve.
Hey, Peter, you and I have to take our commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Stand by. Exonation, Peter Kling is our guest this hour, www.peterkling.com. This is the X-Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Starcom Radio Network, the Digital Broadcast Network, and Digital Satellite Network. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. What if Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him? How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus on Amazon, October 1st, and then wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. The Carl O. Helvey Holistic Cancer Foundation is a new nonprofit foundation that focuses on a holistic approach to cancer that includes physical, mental, spiritual, and political aspects. Cancer education, research, and care are provided for all types of cancer patients. You can listen to interviews with cancer doctors and survivors and read research on holistic aspects of cancer at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. That's www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Jeff Gilson didn't go out looking for adventure, danger, or the answers to most of the controversial political intrigues of the past 30 years. But he found all three when he began investigating the mysterious death of his close friend, Margaret Thatcher's favorite speechwriter. Just an ordinary guy living in a small, sleepy suburb 20 miles outside of London, Jeff's questions provoked a powerful response on both sides of the Atlantic. He was shot at, warned off by the CIA, and formed a close bond with one of Israel's most notorious intelligence officers. Relive Jeff's gripping adventure in his fast-paced book, Maggie's Hammer. Peel away the layers of establishment deception and discover, as Jeff did, that his friend was an assassin with British intelligence, that Great Britain has been America's secret hitman for the past 30 years, and that Princess Diana was not the target in that Parisian tunnel. All of this and more when you visit www.maggieshammer.com and find the link to buying this explosive book online. More and more ordinary people feel they no longer have control of their lives. Jeff fought back. He asked the difficult questions. He set out to redesign his own destiny, and you can do the same using Maggie's Hammer as your guide. Don't waste a moment. Buy it today. Visit www.maggieshammer.com. Call him Reef. Reef is your host. Reef is your guide. Are you happy? Happiness is like trying to find water in the desert. Can you find any? Sometimes, sure, but only a few drops. God is an ocean of joy. But God is not cheap. You cannot find God in a chemical. You must attract God's attention. How? Not by living to please your senses. That is false ego. The Matrix is not real. It is a computer-enhanced hallucination. You are spirit soul, not the body. We have forgotten how splendid our home really is, the spiritual sky. For more information, visit RishasSongOfBlue.com. That's www.REESHASSONGOFBLUE.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Welcome back, everyone. Peter Kling is my special guest, www.peterkling.com. Peter, I thought in the United States that there was a separation of state and religion. If that is the case, why is the Pope addressing your Congress?
That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for an answer. Why was Netanyahu in there back in, what was it, April, beginning of April, end of March? Why is he talking to our Congress, telling them what to do? Well, why is our Congress letting some foreign dictator come to our land and stand before it, let alone, and I call Netanyahu a dictator, and so is the Pope. But the Pope's a religious idol.
Right.
He's a religious figure. He's the world's religious figure.
Oh, wait a second. He's not my religious figure.
I didn't say he was yours, nor is he mine. I said he was the world's religious figure. Remember, our kingdom is not part of this world.
Oh, well, isn't the Pope like the living Mohammed?
More or less, he's like supposed to be the Christian's version of the conduit to God.
I think. And wait a sec. I don't want to correct. I want to correct you here. He is the Catholic's conduit to God. I am a Christian, but I am Anglican, and we don't believe in the Pope.
I tend to be Christian by default because I work. My boss used to be a Jewish carpenter.
Well, there you go. He's the original Christian now, isn't he?
Well, actually, no, he wasn't. Here's the thing about the whole situation with Jesus. It was never a religious message. It was an exopolitical message. It was always my kingdom. What's a kingdom?
Yeah.
And he himself said, I did not come to replace the law.
Right.
I came to fulfill the law. And actually, once that law was fulfilled, it was no longer necessary. And indeed, when Jesus died, that sacrifice then started another law. It was a law of love. And now here's a very interesting thing. This is kind of taking us off subject, but it does tie in directly to where we need to be.
Yeah.
Rob, after a most phenomenal education, an unbelievably incredible life, and over 35 years of research, I can scientifically prove this statement. Jesus said the greatest commandment was or is to love Yahweh or Yahuwah or Jehovah your God with your whole heart, soul, and mind. Mm-hmm. Notice that, whole heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as you do yourself. Now, here's how we start to prove this scientifically. When we are in a state of love, that changes the way our brain actually operates. It slows us down and it puts us in alpha. Alpha is where we want to be. We have our finest moments in alpha. Mm-hmm. When we make love, guess where we are? We are in alpha. When we plan our future, if you're going to plan a vacation and you decide, okay, this is where I want to go, right. And now you've looked at the brochures and you start fantasizing about being there. You start fantasizing about the food, the beach, or wherever it might be that you want to go. You actually picture yourself being there, and before you know it, wow, you created your future and you're actually there. Imagine that. And so but our day-to-day lives are forced to be up in beta. Beta is the reactionary state of mind. Beta is where the fight or flight response is, and it is where fear lives. And here's an interesting thing. CERN is linked to changing the actual Schumann resonance of the Earth, driving it from where it's been recorded for the longest time at 7.82 hertz all the way up to 64 hertz. Now, I made this statement about a month ago, and it was based on data that was given to me that I found and confirmed with additional data off the internet. You know, I'll be damned if I could find that stuff now. Yeah. And not only that, but they took down all the dates of future CERN experiments. The last thing that they really publicly said is that to get to where they want to go, they got to crank the sucker up to full force. Now, I put this one notion off for the longest time, and that was that they were trying to open up a gateway to another dimension. And I'm like, come on, all the players are here already. They've been here for 100 years. Where do you think we're getting all this advanced technology from? Why do you think the Earth's being destroyed at an accelerated rate? Why do you think you've got UFOs? Why do you think you have an X-Zone show, Rob? All the players are here. So what are they trying to open? It's mentioned in the book of Enoch. The Apostle Peter mentioned it. And Jude, the brother of Jesus, mentioned it. And that is a place called Tartarus, into which the Watchers, or the true the sons of the true God, who left their place and bred with human women and created the Nephilim, were thrown into. It is a dimension outside of the 10 dimensions in which we live in. It's outside of our multiverse. There's all different connections, all dealing, especially, I love this one. It's when the the crazy man comes down to out of the graveyard to Jesus, and he says, "What do we have to do with you, O Son of Man? And are you here to send us into the pit?" And Jesus says, "Well, what's your name?" And he said, and the crazy man says, "Well, our name is Legion, for we are many." And then they make a request not to be thrown into the pit, but to be so that they would be allowed to enter this group of swine, which was actually, depending on the account, they were over 1,000 in the herd. It was about 1,000, 1,500. And the swine went crazy, jumped off the cliff, and all drowned. And where they went from there, I don't know. But there's all this correlation right back to Revelation chapter 9, where the star that falls from heaven is given the key to the pit, or as in some, most translations now say, the shaft to the abyss. Interesting.
How can we take anything that is in the Bible verbatim? Like it's just been discovered that the story about Noah had nothing to do with the Jews, that it was actually from Babylonia. In Babylonian times, the Jews stole it and threw it in the Bible.
Oh, well.
So how can we trust anything? How can we trust anything?
Hold on. Not necessarily so. What we have is the word of the Anunnaki.
Yeah, but we don't even know if the Anunnaki are real.
Well, don't worry about it.
Well, why not? No, because we're making statements. We're making statements based on hypothetical existence.
Whoa, hold on. Let's go to something that we might get a handle on here. Okay. The Anunnaki record is that they made us from lower life forms. When we go back and we look at the biblical record, which starts off in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Yeah.
When we follow what's written there, it matches pretty much the geological evidence, and we get to Genesis of how Earth developed, and we get to the part where man is made in the image of God. Now, where's that image? It's at the soul level. The physical is dictated by our ancestors. Well, wait a minute. The Anunnaki say that we were made from lower life forms, but when we look at Genesis 2:21 through 23 to be precise, it says, God said it's not good that the man lives alone. I'm going to make a helper for him. And so he causes a sleep to come over the man. He opens the flesh, takes a tissue sample, closes the flesh, and proceeds to make a woman from the tissue sample.
Peter, I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this, but that's an interpretation. We cannot prove it. The Bible is the greatest story book ever written.
Okay. Interesting thing, and I wish I could remember this archaeologist's name. But this was within the last 2 months. I was watching a documentary on archaeology in the, quote, Holy Land, and one of their premier archaeologists said, we don't put a shovel in the ground without conferring with the Bible first.
Well, that's one archaeologist. That's one archaeologist.
And there's so many times that the record of what is written in the Scripture has been there, and it said, "Oh, this couldn't be it. It's all false." But all of a sudden, they find what's only been recorded in the Bible. And in one case, it's the temple, not the temple, the palace of Sennacherib, which is one of the Sumerian kings.
But you have to admit, Peter, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of hypothesis. The Bible is not exact. It's never been exact. It was a book that was written by Genesis was written by Moses, not God. So you've got his own interpretation. What every author does is inflects what he wants the reader to read and understand.
I agree, because when I wrote Letters to Earth, I did something that I can imagine that they did back then. I went and I researched the most accurate information that I could find at the time of my writing, not the stuff that I had found 30 years ago.
How different?
So I looked for the latest and greatest.
Let's say the Bible.
But there was a lot more exposed as far as who's controlling the system.
Let's say the Bible has never been written. There is no Bible.
Okay.
All of a sudden, somebody gets the bright idea today to write a book that explains our existence. How different from the Bible that was written so many thousands of years ago to the Bible that would be written today? How different would that book be?
You know, that's hard to say because our true history is constantly being changed. But now you brought something up, and we've gotten way off topic here, but you brought something up about Noah's flood.
Yeah.
When we look at the evidence that we're seeing as these glaciers are retreating,
Mm-hmm.
they're carbon dating what they're finding, the vegetation there, to about 5,000 years ago, which, guess what, is about the same time as Noah's flood.
But there is no way in hell or heaven that Noah could have gotten every animal 2 by 2, like the Bible would like you to believe.
I agree.
And we know for a fact,
evidence shows?
And we know for a fact that if in fact there would have been a global flood, as the Bible would want you to believe, that we would not be here today based on the mathematical equation for man's reproduction. We wouldn't have all the different races on the earth that we have now. So the Bible has lied time and time and time and time again.
The interpretation. You see, here's the thing, and now we're getting into history, and I'd rather look at where we are now. We haven't even talked about the Pope and what's happening here. But
we will once we finish this.
Okay. How much time do we have? Because I'm looking at 8:49 your time.
No, it's 9:50 my time.
Okay, yep, the clock just changed.
We've got about 7 minutes.
Okay, well, we're going to have another show here. Anyway, here's the thing, Rob. When I examine the scriptures, first of all, I was never taught religion.
Yeah.
I was taught exopolitics, history, and prophecy. Mm-hmm. And I took that baseline, and now I didn't become a minister. I became a scientist. Mm-hmm. I was actually working in the laboratory reading the book of Job when Job 38, I think it's verse 22, that actually put me onto global warming 10 years before that global and warming became a term. God asked Job, have you seen my storehouses of snow, which I have saved for the day of distress and war? Actually, it said snow and ice, which I have saved for the day of distress and war. I was like, how do you use ice for war? Ooh, what happens if you melt it? Oh, you change the mass on Earth, and now you have earthquakes in one place after another. That's what Jesus said would happen.
Can you 1998,
can you tell me how increased 500%?
How would
they have not gone down since?
How would they know about snow in the Middle East?
That's what I was wondering. How would they know about snow? But wait a second. Where did the Reese-Perry map come from? The Reese-Perry map outlines Antarctica pre-snow. Mm-hmm. So obviously they changed our history. Obviously there was great navigators prior to the flood of either both the biblical times or what is recorded in the Sumerian text. One of the things that I wrote in Letters to Earth is that the problem with the Bible, it's a need-to-know book. They only put the stuff in there that we needed to know. You look at the book of Enoch and you say, why wasn't that put in the Bible? And I say, because if you read the book of Enoch, you'd never read the rest of the Bible.
Like I say, my interpretation of the Bible, it's a great storybook.
I look at it as 6,000 years of alien involvement in human history. And we're at the point where they're getting ready to get re-involved. No, they already are involved. They've been involved in what's going on this planet for the last 100 years.
Where's the proof?
And there's so many correlations that we see going on.
Where's the proof?
How did we go from, Rob, Kitty Hawk to allegedly landing on the moon? But I'll take their word for it.
I don't.
How did we get there in 60 years? How did we get a computer? How did we get a smartphone in every hand? And there's an interesting situation. There's actually a patent. I'm trying to get this information real quick for you. There's a patent which controls our nervous system via plasma TV screens, via TV monitors, which means what you're watching on your 57 or however.
No offense, Peter, but have you seen the patent, or is this something that's on the internet?
No, I'll give you. I'm going to get the patent
because once again, my opinion is the internet is the greatest septic tank that mankind has ever devised because it's full of more crap than it is fact.
Here, hold on, wrong one. I'm in the right file. In the right church, just the wrong pew. Let me get to where I needed to be. Why can't I find it? I actually have the patent number, and I will actually get it for you here in a second. I know what file it's in. I just have to.
We've got about 4 minutes. Let's talk about the Pope.
Nervous system manipulation by electromagnetic fields from monitors. Patent number US 50648B2.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay,
Go
but-
look up the patent. See what it does. I did. The mathematical equations are there. I'm not a mathematician, but I was in the communications industry for 15 years. I know algorithms, and I know how they compress them in order to get all the information across. And guess who invented the internet? www was invented by CERN. So now there's a direct connection to your handheld device and the thing that's changing the Schumann resonance of the very planet, and we can prove that scientifically. When I look at that and that they're trying to open a dimension to a gateway to another world, and I look at what Revelation 9 says, along with all the other prophecies which have already come true, including global warming, including the desertification of Earth, including the Gulf oil disaster, including Fukushima, including chemtrails, besides the fact of famines all over the place and earthquakes in one place
Peter,
after
if
another.
people
like
really
you just said.
believe this, they'd put a gun to their heads and blow their heads off.
I look at it every day and scratch my head and question it, but the more I look, the closer I see. And what we're seeing with the Pope right now is we see the whore of Babylon getting on the wild beast, the nations, and what he wrote in his treatise in October 2nd or 3rd of 2013 is exactly what they're putting out in the post-2015 development agenda. Which takes us to
the other side of the other side of the coin is that people who are talking about all these conspiracies and all these alternative meanings, the New World Order and the rest of the gobbledygook like that, are, as what the Bible says, the false prophets.
Well, or we can play the devil's advocate, or we can stay on guard. Now, I'd rather stay on guard because everything that I've been seeing since I was a child, the things that I was told as a child, I'm seeing here 55 years later as an adult. And I'm saying, seriously, these guys were right. These guys are all off planet now, Rob. These weren't some religious factions. These were old people when I was young, passing on knowledge that was received from them. Sense that was handed down, which surfaced during the Reformation.
Hey, Peter, I hate to do this. My producer's telling me we're out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. www.peterkling.com. I don't know, too many doom and gloom guys out there. Come on, give your heads a shake. Aliens? They don't exist. New World Order? It's a bunch of bunk. I want to see proof. I'm tired of hearing all this gobbledygook. Show me the proof or keep your mouth shut. That's it. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.